stop scrolling. This is not just another message passing through your screen. It's a moment that could shift everything if you're willing to truly hear it. There's a reason your attention paused right here, a reason your mind didn't just brush this off like everything else. Something inside you has been restless lately, quietly trying to get your attention, sending signals you couldn't fully explain. That feeling in your chest, that hesitation when dealing with certain people, that inner voice telling you something isn't right. That wasn't random, and it wasn't fear trying to hold you back. It was awareness trying to wake you up before it's too late. You've been sensing a pattern, noticing energy that doesn't sit well with your spirit, questioning intentions that don't match actions. But maybe you kept doubting yourself, telling yourself you were overthinking, trying to stay positive, trying to avoid conflict, trying to keep things together even when something inside you felt like it was slowly breaking apart. But what if I told you that ignoring those signals is exactly how the trap tightens? That every time you silence your intuition, you give more power to what's trying to drain you, distract you, or pull you off your path. This message matters because it's not here to scare you. It's here to confirm what you already feel deep down, but haven't fully accepted yet. You are not here by accident, and you are not hearing this by coincidence. There is something you need to see clearly right now, something that could protect your peace, your focus, and your future if you choose to listen. If you skip past this moment, you might go back to the same cycle, the same confusion, the same energy that leaves you feeling stuck and unsure. But if you stay, if you really absorb what's being said, you're going to start recognizing things you once ignored, and that awareness will change how you move, how you trust, and how you protect yourself from what no longer deserves access to your life. There are moments in life when your heart recognizes something long before your mind can explain it, and you've experienced that more than once. You felt it in the silence between conversations, in the way certain words didn't match certain actions, in the subtle shift of energy that no one else seemed to notice but you couldn't ignore. At first, you questioned yourself. You told yourself you were overthinking, that maybe you were being too sensitive, that maybe you just needed to trust more and doubt less. So you gave chances. You stayed patient. You tried to see the good, even when something inside you kept whispering that things weren't adding up. But no matter how much you tried to silence that voice, it kept returning, stronger each time, more persistent, more impossible to ignore. That's because it wasn't doubt. It was discernment. It wasn't fear. It was awareness trying to guide you away from something that didn't align with your peace or your purpose. You were picking up on patterns that others either couldn't see or chose to overlook. The small inconsistencies, the hidden intentions, the way certain people made you feel drained instead of uplifted, confused instead of clear. Those signs weren't accidents, they were signals. And deep down you recognized them, even if you didn't act on them right away. There's a difference between judging someone and sensing something, and what you felt came from a place deeper than assumption. It came from experience, intuition, and a quiet understanding that something wasn't right. The truth is, you were never wrong for feeling the way you did. You were just early in seeing what would eventually reveal itself. And being early often feels like being alone, like being misunderstood, like questioning your own clarity just because others don't see what you see. But time has a way of exposing what intuition already knows. And now, as things become clearer, you're starting to realize that what you once doubted about your own perception was actually one of your greatest strengths. You were aware before it was obvious. You sensed before it was spoken. And that ability to feel beyond the surface is not something to suppress. It's something to trust. Because it's the very thing that can protect you from situations and people that are not meant to stay in your life. Not every trap announces itself with danger, and that's what makes it so powerful. Some traps arrive quietly, wrapped in comfort, disguised as something you've been hoping for, something that feels familiar enough to trust. It could be a person who says all the right things but slowly shows you a different reality through their actions, or a situation that looks like an opportunity but gradually drains your energy and focus. At first, nothing seems wrong. In fact, it might even feel right. That's how the trap begins, not with fear, but with false security. You lower your guard because you want to believe in what you see, and little by little, you start ignoring the small signals that try to warn you. The subtle disrespect, the lack of consistency, the feeling that you're giving more than you're receiving. You tell yourself it's temporary, that things will improve, that you just need to be more patient, more understanding. But while you're trying to fix what feels off, the trap is doing its work. It starts shaping how you think, how you feel, and how you see yourself. You begin to question your worth, your judgment, your instincts. You start adjusting your standards just to maintain something that was never solid to begin with. That's the real danger, not the situation itself, but how it slowly pulls you away from who you are. A dangerous trap doesn't just hold you in place, it convinces you that staying is the right choice. It keeps you stuck in a cycle where you're constantly trying to prove your value, hoping things will change, waiting for clarity that never fully comes. And the longer you stay, the harder it becomes to recognize how much you've drifted from your own truth. But awareness breaks that cycle. The moment you start seeing things clearly, the trap begins to lose its power. You realize that not everything that feels familiar is meant for you, and not everything that looks good is good for you. And once you understand that, you stop settling for illusions and start protecting your reality. Warnings don't always arrive in dramatic moments or loud, undeniable signs. More often, they come quietly, repeating themselves in ways you almost overlook until they become impossible to ignore. You've experienced this before. Situations that didn't feel right from the beginning, conversations that left you uneasy without a clear reason, patterns that kept showing up no matter how much you tried to give things another chance. At first, it seemed small, something you could manage or explain away. You told yourself to stay calm, to be patient, to not jump to conclusions. But the same signals kept returning, again and again, as if something was trying to get your attention in a way you couldn't avoid. That's how guidance often works. It doesn't force you, it nudges you. It doesn't control your choices, it reveals what you need to see so you can choose wisely. When doors close unexpectedly, when plans fall apart without explanation, when people show you inconsistency despite your understanding, it's easy to take it personally. It's easy to think you're being rejected or that something is going wrong. But not everything that leaves your life is a loss. Sometimes it's protection moving quietly in the background, removing what cannot go with you to where you're meant to be. The challenge is recognizing that in the moment, especially when emotions are involved, especially when you've invested time, energy, and hope into something you believed in. But clarity doesn't always come through comfort. Sometimes it comes through disruption. The repeated discomfort you felt was not there to confuse you, it was there to guide you. The patterns you noticed were not coincidences, they were confirmations. And the more you pay attention to those signals, the clearer everything becomes. You begin to understand that what feels off consistently is not meant to be fixed by you, and what requires you to ignore your inner voice is not meant for you to hold on to. There is wisdom in stepping back, in observing without forcing, in allowing things to reveal themselves instead of trying to control the outcome. And when you start to trust that process, you move differently. You stop chasing what isn't aligned, and you start recognizing that every warning you received was actually a form of guidance leading you away from what could harm your peace and toward what truly belongs in your life. You've spent so much time trying to keep things together, trying to be understanding, trying to hold on even when something inside you was quietly asking you to let go. You gave chances when you should have stepped back, you stayed silent when you should have spoken up, and you tolerated things that slowly chipped away at your peace just to avoid conflict or loss. It felt easier to adjust yourself than to face the discomfort of walking away. But over time, that choice began to cost you more than you realized. You started feeling drained, disconnected, and uncertain, not because you were weak, but because you were giving your energy in places where it was not being valued or respected. And the hardest part is that you knew it. Deep down, you felt that imbalance, that quiet sense that you were losing parts of yourself just to maintain something that wasn't truly supporting you. Choosing yourself now might feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, because you've been conditioned to prioritize others, to keep the peace, to avoid being seen as selfish. But protecting your peace is not selfish, it's necessary. Walking away from what disrupts your inner stability is not giving up, it's growing up. You are allowed to set boundaries without explaining yourself to people who never tried to understand you. You are allowed to say no without feeling guilty. You are allowed to step back without seeking permission. Not everyone deserves access to your time, your attention, or your energy, and recognizing that is a sign of clarity, not cruelty. The truth is, every time you choose yourself, you are reinforcing your worth. You are telling yourself that your peace matters, that your well-being is not negotiable, and that your life is not meant to be lived in constant compromise. It may feel difficult at first, especially if you're used to being the one who holds everything together, but with time, it becomes strength. You begin to feel lighter, clearer, more grounded in who you are without the weight of trying to fix what was never yours to fix. And as you continue to honor yourself, you create space for healthier connections, for genuine respect, and for a life that no longer requires you to shrink just to fit where you don't belong. Now that you see things more clearly, you can't go back to who you were before this awareness. Something has shifted inside you, and that shift is powerful because it changes how you move, how you respond, and what you allow into your life. You're no longer operating from confusion or constant doubt. You're starting to recognize patterns faster, to read energy more accurately, and to trust the quiet voice within you without needing outside validation. That doesn't mean everything suddenly becomes easy, but it does mean you stop wasting time where it doesn't belong. You begin to move with intention instead of reaction. You stop explaining yourself to people who have already decided not to understand you. You stop chasing clarity from those who benefit from keeping you confused. Instead, you become more grounded, more observant, and more selective with where you invest your energy. This is where your power grows, not in proving anything to anyone, but in aligning with what feels right for you without needing approval. You don't need revenge for what you've seen or experienced. You don't need to expose anyone or make noise about what you now understand. Your growth will speak louder than any reaction ever could. Sometimes the strongest move is silence, not because you have nothing to say, but because you have nothing left to prove. You start focusing on your own path, your own goals, your own peace, and that focus begins to reshape your reality. Opportunities that match your energies start to appear. Connections that feel genuine begin to replace those that felt forced. And, most importantly, you begin to feel a sense of control over your life again, not by controlling everything around you, but by mastering how you respond to it. The awareness you once doubted becomes your greatest advantage. It helps you avoid what once trapped you. It guides you toward what truly supports you. And as you continue forward with this clarity, you realize that you are never losing anything real. You are simply being redirected towards something better, something healthier, and something that no longer requires you to question your worth or silence your truth. Everything you've just heard was not meant to overwhelm you. It was meant to wake you up. Piece by piece, you've been shown that what you felt was never random, that the discomfort, the doubts, and the quiet inner voice were all guiding you toward clarity. You were not imagining things, and you were not wrong for questioning what didn't feel right. You were being prepared to see the truth before it fully revealed itself. The trap was never just about others. It was about how long you would ignore yourself to keep something that was never aligned with you. But now that you see it, everything changes. You are no longer the same person who once hesitated, who once doubted, who once stayed longer than necessary. You are aware, and that awareness is your protection. This is where your next chapter begins, not in confusion, not in fear, but in clarity and strength. You don't need to go back and fix anything, and you don't need to carry the weight of what you've outgrown. What's done is done, and what's revealed has served its purpose. From this moment forward, you move differently. You trust yourself faster. You walk away sooner. You protect your peace without apology. And most importantly, you stop ignoring the very voice that has been trying to guide you all along. So as you leave this message, don't just remember the words, remember the feeling. That sense of knowing, that clarity rising within you, that quiet certainty that you can't unsee what you now understand. Hold on to that. Let it guide your decisions, your boundaries, and your direction. Because this wasn't just a speech you listened to, it was a moment of truth you recognized. And from this point on, you don't just hear the warnings, you act on them.